Welcome back to Interview At, where we teach you how to use the Amazon leadership principles to land your dream job. It does not matter the role. It does not matter the company. If you use the principles we teach you in these videos, you will definitely show up better and stand out in your interviews. The candidate we are talking to in this video is a product manager, and they are targeting a role in tech. Generally, no specific target, but they were definitely looking to move on from their current company. And the leadership principle that we're tackling today is ownership. And the specific question that we asked them was to talk about a time where they took on a scope or set of responsibilities that was outside of their specific scope within their current role. As always with these videos, what we do is we play them back, and then I jump in with some chalk talk to highlight things I saw as a former senior executive with Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and startup founder, to highlight what you could be doing better, what I was thinking as an interviewer, but just ways for you to learn how real interviews happen and what's going on and how you can do better. So with that, let's jump right into it.
Okay, so now I want to talk about you working on something that was clearly outside of your scope of responsibility, but you did it anyway. What was it?
Let me do a couple.
By the way, mega plus points for the water bottles on the counter behind you. I have similar. So
I'm trying to. It's hard to. It's hard to determine how much personality to portray in an interview. That's like the right amount.
Sure.
This was a light moment from the interview that I absolutely adored, but yeah, I have water bottles all over my house and throughout my office. I
don't know. All right. So there's a pretty obvious one. As I've talked about, I had a lot of pretty heavy lifting product management tasks and a team that was running, and I was spinning up new product management teams constantly. But at the same time, I had the opportunity to be on our podcast and make YouTube videos, which definitely aren't direct drivers of my success. It was something that didn't fall into my it didn't increase my metrics as being the best product manager, which is always something I'm trying to do anyways. So it was picking and choosing when it jived with all of the current projects I had and the features and the team building and making sure that never was compromised in any way. But even though it was more work, it was enjoyable to me, and I felt like I had value to add and I could make a product better, which at the end of the day I know that about myself, is that seeing inefficiencies or seeing something we could change just a little bit without that much work is definitely something that gets me out of bed in the morning. And so I could take on some extra projects, but make sure that I kind of set the boundaries right from the beginning, that sometimes it might be weeks where I cannot push anything forward on these extra responsibilities that I took on at the company. But I enjoy them so much that I always make time if I have extra time. And so what I ended up doing
caused you to... So I'm going to jump in here before I ask my follow-up question there in the interview. When you are, as a candidate, setting up your situation and task, right? If we're using the STAR format, which is what I generally talk about here, is a great way to categorize your answer and lay out your answers, right? The situation task. There are some key questions that you absolutely have to answer to have an effectively communicated answer to an interviewer. And number one on that list is, what problem were you trying to solve? And in this question, what the candidate was asked, what responsibilities did you take on that were outside of your normal scope? And what didn't land here was whether or not he made the choice or the choice was made for him. And that's kind of a critical component in ownership question, right? Where you're demonstrating that you act as an owner, you're looking around, you see additional work that needs to be done. And sometimes you just say, you know what? No one's doing that. It's important. I'm going to take that on. So in this case, it wasn't clear, and that really would have kind of separated out a little bit more a great answer from a good answer. That's one part here. Two, he's talking about he took on working on a podcast and doing YouTube videos. Now, I'm aware of these products because it just through random happenstance, I was a listener of the podcast and a viewer of the YouTube channel before he found his way to me, but he didn't realize that, like, we didn't know that until after we talked, which is pretty funny. And he completely undersells his role in the podcast and in these videos. It's a ton of work to take on that is very much outside of the normal role and scope of a product manager. This is more akin to like marketing. You might see customer growth, or any number of other things, but not generally typical product managery stuff. And so the candidate sort of undersold that here, and that's an opportunity for him to improve on this answer. And so when you're thinking about what you're communicating, don't always assume the person on the other side of the table or the lens, this is how we're doing our interviews now, understands everything about what you've done, and it's okay to add just a little bit more context about what you did. Just keep that in mind.
Take these on.
I think it boils down to I like participating in things, and I like really being present at work and interacting with colleagues and making things better. And so as a constant improvement, I think our podcast, as someone who listened to the podcast and who has watched YouTube videos, I felt like we could make things better, and there was no one else that could kind of provide the insight or the spearhead them in the direction that I could. And so if I didn't take them up, I would watch them stay. They would still grow and change, but not in a way that I thought would be beneficial. And so what I could do is I could kind of spend some targeted time and make sure that I had a plan for how to interact and how to make these small things better. But the podcast, it's both between these couple projects, it's a huge, if I really involve myself, it's like 25% of my time, which as a 40-hour work week, that's just not enough. I mean, you can't do both of those things. And so what I would end up doing is I enjoyed them enough, and I thought that I contributed value, that it's something that I felt like I was beholden to the company to share these insights, to share these values, and to make something better so that it's impacting more people in a way that's the only way I know how. And so
what did you think?
So the answer definitely catches up a little bit as the prodding question of, what caused you to take this on was asked. What I was trying to get at as an interviewer, I'm trying to understand, did he make the decision himself or was it made for him? Or really, that's a separator of kind of levels of experience and skill in an employee is, when they're making their own decisions about how they prioritize their time and the things they're going to go work on, it's more senior level thinking. And so his answer definitely caught up, which is great. And he's recognizing and communicating very clearly, this is work that will make the company better. No one was doing it, and he brought something unique to the table, which is, it turns out the content was about cycling, road cycling, and turns out he's a very competitive cyclist. So he had a lens on the content and what customers want. So he was bringing his product manager experience in the product that he was building for those customers to the people that would be viewing the YouTube content and the podcast, listening to the podcast content, and bringing that to the table in a way to make it better. So that lands aces.
We did.
What did you think was the benefit to the company or even to customers of you taking this on?
I think it's...
So I'm going to jump in here real quick. The reason I asked this question, right? What's the projected benefit? Again, in your setup, you need to answer what problem you're solving for what customer. But one of the things that I'm listening for that really helps me understand how good, especially a product manager, how good a candidate you are is whether or not you understand the cost, or potential cost of the company or the risk to the company if you don't do this work, right? And if it doesn't land naturally in the answer, that's fine. It's not a red flag or anything. But that's why I'm asking this question here, is I want to understand, does he understand that?
It's twofold. I think that as a company, I think a more diverse group of people working on something definitely makes it better. And so our company was fairly engineering heavy and fairly, I guess, I don't know, there's probably a better way to say this, but type A personalities, I guess athletes, right?
Cyclists?
We're filled with athletes,
What?
cyclists. So there's a very specific flavor of employee. And even though I fall within that category, I'm definitely something that is closer to a different perspective. And we had so few of those on the podcast that I felt like I could contribute something that would grab another bucket of people listening to the podcast. And the same with the race analysis videos on YouTube, where I felt like there's many people who want the formula of how to win a race, but there's also people who will ingest something and get slightly smarter or have a takeaway that only I can provide. And so I felt like we're effectively widening our market every time I join something. And even if it's a small one, I think the diversity added to the projects was really important, because that will change the projects forever. But also widening the market as I'm participating will get more people into the system, which at the end of the day is what those were driven. That's the metric we were trying to increase with those projects.
Okay, makes sense.
There's a lot that I liked about this candidate, a lot. That said, if there's a criticism, which there clearly needs to be here, he didn't land the results. So he talks about spending time on this set of things to bring in, he referred to him as a different bucket of customers to the content. Awesome. Great thinking. He demonstrates great ownership, bias fraction of taking on the work and going after it and getting it done. All of that is great. But what improved as a result of doing the work? And that didn't land. So this was a good answer. That could have been a great or even an amazing answer if, and I say this again and again and again, metrics matter. When you have them, share them. If you don't have the exact numbers, directionally share them. Talk about what you were measuring, even if you can't remember the exact, if the thing was too long ago or it's confidential information, it doesn't matter. But talking about we dramatically improved our listener rate, or the views went up some percentage, or we found that we were converting more customers from who said they were coming in from those channels, however you track that. Any number of things that they could have done, he doesn't talk about here. He doesn't offer that up. That's kind of a miss, and it's a bummer, but it does speak to the more junior nature of this particular candidate. He was, we call him an L6, kind of a late early career product manager who's still developing his core skill set. And he didn't include that here in his answer, and that was part of the content that was delivered in the follow-up. So as with all of these videos, I like to read the assessment I would have read into the room for the candidate, and so I'll do that here for ownership. Candidate over-delivered on level appropriate ownership with this answer block. The work taken on helped the company and customers in numerous ways, while at the same time not specifically directly contributing to the candidate's OKRs. Candidate also demonstrated second-order leadership skills in recognizing how the work could help the company broaden their employee base, thus making for a more inclusive product development environment. So, bit of empathy-led leadership here. I will note, if I'm being vocally self-critical about my own work here, I didn't note in this assessment that he failed to land any metrics. I talk about how the work didn't directly contribute to his own OKRs, but I didn't actually ding him here for not highlighting the fact that he didn't have any metrics in his answer, which just goes to show, look, I do this now 5 days a week, it feels like, these mock interviews. And it feels like I have a pretty good handle on what I'm doing. Obviously, I've hired hundreds and hundreds of people, been involved in lots of hiring decisions. This is a miss on my part, where if I was, to judge my own results here as a interviewer who's evaluating candidates, I missed it. And I think I liked the candidate so much as I was going through and writing up my assessments, I got blinded to the fact that I think this is a candidate who, just throughout the interview, if all 6 parts eventually land on YouTube, but certainly in the online course where you can get access to the content library, you'll see that this particular candidate, very, very strong, lots of great things to love, definitely needs an opportunity at a bigger company where you can learn from more seasoned product managers. I think he was kind of an army of one in the company he was at and learned a ton and did a lot of great things, but he definitely needs to be in an environment that's more structured for him. And that was part of the feedback that was given to him in the interview. So, with that in mind, if you like the content, please go ahead and like it. If you love the content, I'd love you to subscribe to the channel. Leave in the comments if you feel like there's content you'd love to see, leadership principles you feel like I'm not covering, roles maybe I haven't put enough content on. Look, I do one of these a week, so I can only do so many, but that's what we are doing with the channel, trying to give you what you want, and we'll talk next week.